Hey guys, so this week is another kind of tutorial video making tip video, and I wanted to talk about one of my main cameras I take for travel, and that is my GoPro. So I wanted to talk about the GoPro and some of the accessories I have with it, and then some of the settings that I go through to make sure everything looks really nice. I know the GoPro sometimes gets a bad rap that it's like a crappy camera. I mean, it's definitely not amazing, but it definitely is great for what I want to use it for when I travel. So this is my little GoPro. I have the Hero 6. I know the Hero 7 just came out, and I think one of the biggest things is that it does really good stabilization. The 6 is pretty good. It's not terrible. So my first accessory that we bought with the GoPro, so it came in like a package, so I think we paid like $300 for this, is the Karma Grip. So basically this is like a stabilizer. I'm not going to turn it on because I don't have the GoPro in it, but it basically just like stabilizes the camera. So when you walk around, it has this gimbal, it's called a gimbal, access that keeps it upright and straight. So when you like move it, it stays where you want it to stay. It's great for like when you're hiking. We use it a lot of like Disney. They let you bring this into Disney since it doesn't like pull out. This is cool. It's not considered a selfie stick. But it just makes it nice and smooth. So if you're like hiking or walking, or if you just want a nice like smooth panning shot of something, it's really great, and it's super compact. The battery life is not amazing, and I don't think you can like change out the battery. You have to charge it. So that kind of sucks. Like a full day at Disney, will die, but it also charges your GoPro. So your GoPro will live forever, but your grip will die very quickly. The next accessory that we have is this little, so this comes with the GoPro, this thing on top. It's just like a little case for it. You pop it in here and it snaps up and it stays in there. And then you can get all sorts of like mounting accessories from GoPro, and that's what you use this for. I bought this little Manfrotto little tripod. GoPro makes one, and it's like a handle, like you can hold it like this, but then it also folds out into a little tripod. GoPro makes one, but it was like $30, and I felt like it was kind of steep for what it was. So I decided to go with this Manfrotto one, which is like half the price, and it's really sturdy and super great. This little ball up at the top moves around too, so you can like set it up while you are walking by and get yourself in the shots. We'll put it at like the bottom of the pool and swim up to it and stuff. It's really great for going underwater and getting a little extra stabilization, like when we're snorkeling. If you're just holding the GoPro like this, like underwater, it gets pretty shaky. If you put it in this, it kind of takes some of the shake out because your hand's down here instead of on the camera. So it's great for going underwater because it is waterproof. The grip is not waterproof. Don't take that in the water. I would also kind of recommend one of those tripods that like grab onto things, so you could like stick it on a tree and have everybody wave at the camera or something like that. And it's a great way to get everybody included in the video, because sometimes I'm like, we'll shoot a whole video and I'm not in it at all because I was filming the whole thing. So, okay, the last accessory I have for my GoPro is a filter. So I have two of these. They're different variables. So this one's an 8 and my other one's a 16. So a filter, this just like pops on right here and covers it. And so basically it just kind of cuts the light that comes into the camera. If you want to make some more like cinematic looking shots when you're using your GoPro, filters are really great. When you don't use a filter and it's really bright out, the shutter speed gets really high, and the higher the shutter speed, it's going to look a little sharp and a little... My dog is sneezing. Are you okay? Yeah, go lay down. Go on. If you want it to feel a little softer, a little more cinematic, putting the filter on there will bring the shutter speed back down. I don't use them a ton, but it's great like when you're on the beach and it's a full sunny day. Okay, so I'm gonna go over some of the settings that I like to use with the GoPro. So I'm gonna flip this camera around so that you can see what I'm doing on the GoPro, and we can kind of talk about settings and what kind of difference it makes with things. All right, so this is my little GoPro, and I just wanted to go over settings. So as you can see, most of the settings are down here on the bottom, and I like to shoot in 1080 because it shoots 4K, but 4K takes up a lot of space. So if you're worried about memory card space, you're on a long trip and you only have one memory card, I would say do 1080 instead of 4K because it does take up a lot more space than the 1080 does. And I like to shoot in 60 frames per second. I do this for weddings and all my other video work too, because it's not too crazy sharp like 120 and it's not too crazy soft like 24, but it still allows me to slow things down. So if I do want to do something in slow motion, I always have the option because I've shot in 60 frames per second. But like I said, it does a lot of other ones. There's 240, 120, 30, 24, and 60, but I prefer 60. So I'm gonna keep it there. And then it has field of view, so you can do linear, which is kind of like a regular camera, pretty straightforward, just a regular lens. It's still pretty wide, as you can see. You can pretty much see my whole desk. And then there's wide. Come on. There's wide, which is a little wider, and both on wide and linear, you can zoom in. I wouldn't recommend it. It's a digital zoom, so it's not that nice. And then there's super view, boom, and you can see what a mess my desk is in real life. So super view is like really, really wide. I really only use it for when I'm doing like landscaping kind of stuff or a time lapse or something and you want to get a ton of stuff in the frame. Otherwise, Tori likes to shoot in wide, my husband, and I like to shoot in linear, so it's personal preference really for that one. Then over here on this menu, if you swipe over, you get into the Pro Tune settings. So you could leave these all on auto and be happy with life because there's not too much you can change, but it does look really nice just straight out of the box. So shutter speed, I have set to auto right now just because I've been running around and other people have been using it. I don't want to have to set up the settings all the time. So I've just been using the auto setting, but you can come in here and change the auto setting to something else. Rule of thumb is you want your shutter speed to be double your frame rate. So we're at 60 frames per second, so 120 would be a good choice. And with the shutter speed, remember that the bigger the number, the less light you're letting in. So when you are in bright situations, having a high shutter speed is good because it's bringing in less light, but it is going to look a little sharp. But if you're in a dark situation, you want your shutter speed as low as possible and your frame rate as low as possible because that is going to let the most light in. So you can set like an ISO minimum and an ISO max. With ISO, that's basically your film speed. So the lower the number, the less light you're letting in. The higher the number, the more light you're letting in. I always like to set my max at 3200. The higher the number goes, the more grainy it gets, and 3200 is kind of like my grain threshold of what I can personally tolerate. So it's really up to you. You can just leave them on auto as well, or put ISO max on the highest possible ISO that GoPro will let you, white balance, I leave on auto just because I'm always in different situations when I'm using this on vacation. You know, we're out in the sun, we're inside at a restaurant, then I don't have to think about it. So they have a sharpness setting. There's only two. It's low and medium. Oh, there's a high. I don't like a lot of sharpness, so I set mine to low. I like things to be a little dreamy, I guess, so I don't like a ton of sharpness. And then the color profile, so there's only two choices. You can have flat or you can have GoPro. The GoPro is obviously a little more like out of the box. You're not gonna have to change it. Flat is a lot flatter, less color. Audio is, I have it set to medium because I don't really like to use the audio on this camera. The audio is pretty terrible. I rarely use it, and I'll use it in a bind, and I don't like to use it because it just doesn't look great. And then you can swipe over, there's these little dots for more things. So there's video stabilization. Mine's turned off for some reason. That could be part of my problems lately with this camera. But you can turn it on and it will help smooth your footage, even if you're just holding the GoPro. So, like I was saying, you can use the gimbal. If you're using the gimbal, probably turn it off because it will kind of eat up your battery a little bit if you have stabilization on when you're not really using it. Then it has auto low light, which is just, it's gonna change your settings in lower light. This camera is not amazing in low light whatsoever. I would not take it into any sort of dark situation. Yeah, so those are the settings that I like to use with my GoPro. So hopefully that helps you if you're considering a GoPro as a travel camera to take with you. It's really great because it's so tiny. You can just throw it in my purse or a backpack. Nobody argues over having to carrying it because there's not a big heavy camera in there. Does it get as good a footage as one of my big girl professional cameras? Definitely not, but it does get different stuff, and I do really like it, and it's my go-to when I'm traveling and I don't want to have to drag around one of my big cameras. Most of my vacation videos that I post were shot on my GoPro, unless I say otherwise. But next week I'm going to talk about the Quick app, which is GoPro's app for editing video on your phone. You can send, this has a Wi-Fi connection, so you can send your footage straight from here to your phone. You can also use it with video that you've taken on your phone. It's kind of a really cool app, and it makes quick little videos if you're just on the go and you don't really want to spend a lot of time editing. And yeah, we'll see you then.